So unfortunately, the last campaign as Japan is now broken. Are we going for the collab? We'll kind of see if we go for the collaborators or for the Her Majesty's government. But unfortunately, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, the Japanese campaign completely broke. Apparently, the update broke the save file we had, which is unfortunate. But now we're going to be playing as jolly old England. So England, of Englishmen and the rest of the world, what is there to say but that they were invaded, most of it at one point or another. Perhaps then it is inevitable that they would be subjected to the same deprivations they inflicted on 1,000 nations at the hands of Germany. England in this new and untested era is not the same place that it once was, for instead of the traditional power structures, it is led by a loose alliance of all those who want no more war with the Reich. The royal party under Alec Douglas Home. The party has recovered greatly from the miserable days of the war and the chaos following the 1953 London uprising by communist revolutionaries. Home leads a moderate faction of the RP, the large proportion of the coalition dedicated more to stability than any true ideals beyond that. At his side is Harold Macklin of the Reformists, who is nominally adhere to the democratic principles, but are willing to compromise with the Home for the good of England. And also present are the Highliners. Dedicated... Let me just please scroll. Dedicated fascists led by Arthur Kenneth Chesterton, who would advocate for a state closer to the German model. Despite their differences, all three of these groups have been willing to work together for the sake of England's recovery. But recovery doesn't mean stability. For another faction exists within England, the HMMLR. Her Majesty's most loyal resistance is a network of several different rebel groups, all answering to one unknown man, allegedly called the Boss. The organization itself can be traced back to the aftermath of the Second World War, but it wasn't until the defeat and annihilation of the Communist Party of Great Britain at the Third Battle of Cable Street that HMMLR rose to the forefront of the English rebel organizations. HMMLR proper are dedicated to the return of the person they believe is the rightful monarch of England, Queen Elizabeth II. A somewhat conservative organization, it is surprising that they are allied with the second largest faction, the Left Resistance, led by Bill Alexander, a veteran of the West Russian War, the Spanish Civil War, and a dozen other wars in between. Along with being one of the few notable survivors of the Third Cable Street, the Left Resistance are a electric mix of communists, socialists, and even most of the old Labour Party, united under a common banner of cause. A third piece of the puzzle can be found in David Sterling and his commandos, the only rebel group to be in active rebellion from the end of the Second World War when he deserted. Sterling's commandos are the smallest of three major parts of HMMLR, but also one of the best trained and equipped. What sets them apart from their brethren, however, is their fierce republicanism and unquenchable desire for vengeance upon the traitors of England. These two factions will eventually have to face off, though in what circumstances and what remains to be seen. But the victor will have an opportunity to decide not just the fate of England, but potentially the fate of Britain as well. Features: dedicate the fate of England through elections and politicking, reunite the Isles for better or for worse, play your part in the great game between the Reich and the OFN, England prevails. Tally-ho! It's fine that the Japanese campaign is bugged. It is unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. Also, a little bit more selfishly, people on YouTube were not as interested in the Japanese campaign as some of the other campaigns we were doing. We'll go tick-tock, tick-tock. Also, these are done pretty fast. And the fact that we're not actually at the 1960 tech for England means that research matters a little bit more. Recommend Red World. The thing with Red World is that there's only like a handful of countries in it that actually have content. If you're not playing within like the United States, I don't think there's really that much content you can go with. But if you're going to try it, definitely, I'd recommend trying it out at least. Okay, so right now we're running out of oil, which is just a great way to start. 14, 10, 19. So we probably want some more civilian factories here. Build them just in London and Oxfordshire. Free military factories. What do we need? Just give the game like a day to run. I guess we'll just go for... I mean, what are we missing? Decisions available, low manpower. All of you, you're only a 19 stack, so you might as well, I think, just hang out probably on the Scottish border, because if there's one thing that's true, an Englishman can never trust a Scot. So throw you guys here. Dockyards, we're going to put, let's say, 4 in convoys. Are convoys not a thing in the mod? Because it says that they're never done. So you know what, let's not even worry about that then. Let's then just build a handful of submarines. Across the channel minus... Oh, no, wait. What the hell's across the channel? We cannot train, disband units, or edit unit templates. Okay, then. So, you know what? Training anything does not matter. Yeah, you can't make guns until the English Civil War. Okay, I do see that now, yes. Yeah, no, that's really, really bad output. So I guess, yeah, just building a bunch of civilian factories for right now. We have horrible poverty, medium taxation, rudimentary manufacturing lines. We completed in 1964. Okay, so a while from now. So let's not worry about this then. Don't have that on. And of course, we have no manpower. So all of that's looking pretty good. Have any? Do I have anything? I have 64 ships. I have 1 carrier, and that's about it. I have a few battleships and mostly destroyers, and a handful of submarines. But it's mostly a destroyer fleet. Why are we running out of fuel? Base gain from buildings. We just start with nothing. Can I at least trade a factory? We'll run out in 8 months. This is fantastic. The Copper and the Rebel. Timothy O'Flaherty considered himself about as normal as one could be under circumstances. He left school once he could read and write, following his dad into being a bobby once he met the age requirements. Got to the rank of inspector and even found a nice lass to settle down with. But the rest of the world, Tim happened to think the rest of the world wasn't so normal at all. The police hadn't changed much since the German invaded. Tim had never gotten a chance to fight. London surrendered before the Germans reached his unit's position. But he had known more than a few good men who didn't live to see the war's end. In his eyes, it was not what had come after that had been worse. The London uprising, not to mention the constant terrorism, not by the Fenians, but by the Englishmen against their German tyrants. And Tim had to stop them. But whatever he thought of the government, they had a point. The rebels winning might well be the end. Might well end in the Germans coming back, and for his wife and daughter's sake, he'd do anything to prevent that. Passing Inspector O'Fatherly was Grizel Robbins, a young woman whom the police had probably put a great amount of effort finding if they knew who she was. Griselda was grown up under the boo. Under the boo? She watched German killed her friends in the London uprising and watched her brother beg on the streets because he couldn't earn a living with his leg blown off. No matter what the government promised, the Germans hadn't left. Which is why she joined HMMLR. It hadn't been easy. Griselda had followed the rumors for months before they noticed her, and after she passed the test of loyalty, she ended up joining a local cell. London might be the home for the traitors after all, but they were an arrogant bunch who couldn't even notice those moving beneath their feet. The die is cast. I would say we're probably going to lean slightly more to towards HMMLR. Stay beneath their feet. Will enable gameplay protected from HMMLR. Yeah, so you know what? Let's go for HMMLR. You know, they're like the underdogs, right? How well do you understand the old system? A little bit. A tiny amount. I don't think I've ever actually effectively used carriers ever in Hearthfire 4. So, you know, take that as you will. Everybody just kind of, hanging out. Because right now we are in the Unity Pact. Check. Oh, yeah, my mechanic, right. So we got the House of Commons. We have 62% government stability. The moderates, hardliners, you are support for the government. The people who support us the least are the independents, but I guess that's not a huge surprise. We have 188 seats held by you, the hardliners. The reformists have 136 seats. Edward VIII, right. Monarch, authoritarian democracy, government stability factor, war support, political power gain. You are the opposition leader, the reformist. Plus employment rate, though, that seems pretty okay. And you are the moderates, so that's plus 10% stability. So you're basically just offsetting Edward VIII's stability modifiers. Because the moderates are you. The reformists are the conservatives, and the hardliners, of course, are the fascist. Hidden beneath their feet. Griselda was part of one of the only HMMLR cells within the city of London proper, and probably the only one which wasn't outright underground. At first, she was just a regular member, but with those above her being continuously killed or driven out by the collabs, she soon found herself leader of the cell. Most of her days consisted of working as a barmaid in a pub sympathetic to the cause, listening in on conversations and keeping an eye out for new recruits. Every now and then, though, her cell would get some real work, smuggling out firearms, explosives, or even important people to cells in other parts of the country. Of course, sometimes the higher-ups wanted her to do something. As far as Griselda knew, she answered to whoever coordinated London proper, but she hadn't never seen them, and only got marching orders through the dead drop of a coded letter. If she were ever honest with herself, Griselda wasn't that fussed on return of the Queen, or whatever the official line was. Griselda wanted revenge against those who had betrayed England, and if HMMLR were the ones offering, then who was she to turn them down? She was part of the fight for freedom, and she would die for it if need be. The motivation of a person can be amazing, can be as simple as a knife, or complex as a maze. The gears move. I'm assuming now we have some decisions here. Yeah, it's King Edward. It's the one that was sympathetic to the Nazis, so it makes sense that he'd be currently the monarch. So, the government has support down here. Disputed in the Midlands and up here in the north, the HMMLR is doing pretty well for themselves. So, HMMLR, OFN relations. We have a moderate relationship. We have 500 weapons. We have 141 political power. The relationship boost speaks out. I think we want to get like a gun shipment first. Seems like it makes a lot of sense. And then let's reach out for OFN contacts. Get some more support there. And the King's Speech. The collaboration government is like a Kiev. Nothing stays secret for long, and anything can be bought for a price. In this case, the boss has received information that the traitor's King Edward is going to be making a speech to calm down the nation in times of uncertainty. How quaint. Well, it won't do to have our organization be unrepresentative at this momentous occasion. Indeed, we ought to send representatives of our own to the proceedings. Heavily armed representatives, of course. This is the kind of action that can take place without extensive planning. HMMLR needs to prepare for our response to the collaborationist attempts to hide the truth of how they have failed England and its people. With some luck, our message will still ring out proper. Safety of the future. Period chance was 5%. Minimum 10, max 10. Available weapons 500. So I'm assuming we want to make it so that it's very unsafe for the king to give his speech. 25 weapons, send in agents. So that's a 5% chance. You're a 10% chance. Both. Okay, so you know what? Let's just do anti-government propaganda for now. Be done in 2 days. And send in agents as well with 50 rifles. Because we have 500, I think. This, yeah, it's all in here. Hitler names Bormann to be its successor. Yeah, 450. And I'm assuming that's changed here as well. Yes. Move down, send in agents, no. Okay, so now you're going down by 5%. Which seems... Do I want to keep in sending agents? Or do we want to keep it kind of as is right now? Because right now, I think it should be ticking down. Were you doing Japan? We were doing Japan, but we believe at least that there was an update to the mod which broke the Japanese campaign because like the events were not firing properly. So everything just kind of came to a standstill. As unfortunate as that is, the gears move, and we are also doing HMMLR. The Sterling of a plan. No one quite knew who the boss actually was. Oh, to be sure, everyone knew of Mad Dave Sterling and the Red Governor Alexander. A Red General Alexander once had refused to surrender with the rest of the army and fought on since the end of the war, and others of the most notorious communists who have escaped Cable Street. Some thought that those two were the leaders of HMLR, and the boss was a smokescreen, a fiction to keep the traitors' attentions elsewhere. Griselda personally thought it was that unlikely, as she looked at that too. In spite of their collegially and pointing out key locations on the map of London, all she could think about was how they obviously didn't like each other very much. It was the small things, the way Sterling grimaced when Alexander rebuked the idea of placing dynamite on the bridge on account of the casualties, while Alexander frowned when Sterling suggested that his men would be better suited to an open attempt out on the king. And Griselda was at a meeting because she was the highest-ranking cell leader in London, not forced underground, a sobering thought considering that she wasn't even in her 30s. There'd be plenty of those who came before her and plenty who'd come after, it seemed. And that was the idea formed in her mind. What if I do it? She interrupted in a small voice. The two HMMR leaders looked at her with surprise. Bill Alexander gestured for her to continue, while Sterling looked her over with fresh eyes and searching for something he'd missed before. I mean, I walk through that square each morning. The Bobbies know me well enough, and that they won't think twice about why I'm going so close to the cordon. Griselda stopped and waited the two's response. In the end, it was Sterling who answered, "How familiar are you with grenade throwing?" HMLR has all sorts, including the brave ones. Which path is Thatcher? I'm actually not too sure which one Thatcher is. I think she is... If I remember, I'm trying to remember from the last campaign. I think she is with the collaborationist, I think? I'm trying to remember. Is about the only prime ministers I know are Chamberlain, Churchill, Thatcher, Blair, and Cameron. Well, you've got to at least know, like, Boris Johnson, right? Like, he's prime minister right now. So I feel like you've got more knowledge than you think you do. Gun shipment mostly successful. Some of the losses to be expected while clandestinely ordering munitions through channel from foreign supporters, and this is no less true now than it was in the past. I believe approximately half our requested shipments of firearms and munitions have found their way into the hands other than our own. I mean, that's good enough. How many guns do we have now? 850? Yeah, send more guns. That seems good. I mean, do I know... Chamberlain, Churchill, Thatcher... Even I'm actually having a hard time naming another prime minister other than those ones right there, so I would not feel too bad about it. Yeah, so we're at -10, so we can't make this... I mean, the brown is how safe he is. So I think, yeah, this is working out well for us. So I think we can worry... We don't have to worry about the speech, at least for the moment. We don't have a lot of support in the south. The people in London are too... they're too comfortable. Reach out to politicians. We only have 38 political power. With 800 rifles and high relationships, I think right now we're kind of fine. For the moment. Like, I don't think we need to actually boost any of this stuff. We can infiltrate the palace. The king is planning to give a wonderful speech from the Buckingham Palace. We know this for certain. We have a chance to get our people next to us. Okay. So why is when this is 0? Would you play Red World UK? I'm not against the idea. A plan in motion. He had no doubt that right as he was standing over the map of London, the reactionaries would be sending dozens of raids after him in English North. Such as saying that they didn't realize that he was in the basement not a kilometer away from Buckingham Palace itself. Bill Alexander chuckled at the thought, gaining the attention of a man next to him. Sometimes Bill regretted signing the left resistance up with the HMMLR, and any time he had to work personally with Dave Sterling only made the feelings resurface. The man was effective, to be sure. Sterling had kept his commandos alive by sheer unrelenting determination for nearly 20 years, but he was also ruthless and unconcerned with civilian casualties, which made Bill think that he was quite possibly mad. Bill had his man smuggling grenades in the days before his arrival, and Philippi had sent word to the reactionaries, still thought Bill was in Manchester. Sterling, in turn, had escorting Bill down to Trader Central, as the ex-SAS referred to London. The king wouldn't like to be welcomed. They had prepared for him. Sterling was glancing up at him to see the chuckle had meant anything, but Bill had just waved it off. The excavation point is a boat in the Thames, which will take you north. You understand? Finish any unfinished business you have here because you won't be coming back anytime soon. To her credit, Griselda, local HMMLR cell leader, just nodded, committing the plan in memory. Against his expectations, Bill was starting to have a good feeling about the whole exercise. He only hoped Claude was handling things in his absence. Let's get the party started. So we can probably infiltrate. If we get to 0%, we might infiltrate the palace, I think. So in a moment, yeah, basically, are you at 0% now? We have no safety. Let's try this and see what it does for us. I mean, 25 political power is quite a bit. Yeah, it didn't do anything because we're already at 100%. But at least it's good to check. Almost there. The King's Speech. I mean, he has 0% safety, which seems pretty good for us. Like, at 0%, he's gotta be, like, guaranteed to die. I see you're playing as the good guys. The King and a Pauper. Edward VIII listens to the chief of the city of London police outlined his plans for security with something approaching a dull interest. The King of England didn't really know why the man insisted upon having so many rotations of guards about the location of the speech, but given recent events, Edward was declined to listen. Whispers had reached Edward that HMMLR intended to kill him at the speech, something he had initially refused to believe. Surely no group loyal to his niece would kill the reigning monarch. At the same time, the voice in his head had asked what if they were right. Edward hadn't gotten any sleep for days. Wallace had noticed and started fretting, only making the whole affair worse. Edward had resolved not to make her present at the speech. That way, even if something did go wrong, she would not be in a line of fire. As for himself, well, as his brother had always been so fond of saying, he had a duty to attend to. Griselda had memorized every guard rotation. Sterling had insisted upon it. Alexander had gone over the evacuation route with her, gotten her to warn her brother and mother ahead of time. Once he'd gotten assurances that they weren't likely to turn traitor, the main thing that Griselda had worked on was her throwing skills. Where she might have had all the skill to toss them fresh out of the bar, she now had at least a basic grasp of distance and time needed before she ran. She was ready, and Griselda dearly had hoped that it would be enough. The die is cast. The writing on the wall. Yeah, we're playing as HMMLR. Okay, decisions available. I mean, but like high relationship. Can it get better than high? Maybe. I mean, she has no chance. Like the king has no chance of surviving right now. Your exchange is minus 10%. We probably could have been fine at just the 5%. So. What about like a large gun shipment? You know what? A large gun shipment seems like it would make a lot of sense for us, so we'll do that. We can also send. Yeah, we don't need to send in agents. That's fine. HMMLR more like Himmler. You know, I didn't think about it that way. When you bring it up like that, you know, we might have some problems. Where is Himmler? Yeah, he's Burgundy, right? Yeah. Very interesting. A convenient illness. As Timothy O'Farley sat on the couch with the telly turned on to some children's show, he reflected that maybe he should take the day off work more often. Not every month, or even every 6, but maybe once a year wouldn't do any harm. His daughter seemed ignorant of the fact that he was watching them instead of their mother, and had busied themselves assembling a dollhouse he had bought them. With what he was telling Martha was a special bonus. The truth be told, it was a special bonus. It wasn't quite every day a man showed up at your front door and offered you 500 quid to stay at home on a specific day. Tim wouldn't have acted on it except for the fact that he caught several of the younger constables chatting amongst themselves on the subject, and upon some discreet inquiries, had discovered his boss, Chief Inspector, was taking the King's Speech off. If everyone was doing it, why not him? He could think of a lot of things he'd rather do than stand about in a line all day and watch a crowd riot. Something that was reinforced as his wife brought out the treaty and sat it on the table. Oh yes, no need to go to work today. Family can be its own reward.